So thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us today. Verena and I are representing DeGroote Women in Business, also known as DWIB, which is a club at DeGroote that aspires to fully engage, motivate, and empower business students through business education and experience. So my name is Joanne Serrao. I'm in my third year of the Honors Commerce program, and I am this year's Director of Finance for DWIB.
And my name is Verena. I am the Director of Advocacy for this year at DWIB.
My name is Fatima Babakura. I graduated with an honors in the Bachelor of Commerce in 2018, and I currently own two businesses. Tima Be, a luxury accessories brand for women, and also a perfumery brand, Yera Secrets, that is inspired by culture and travel.
Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing. As someone who was so excited to attend McMaster in my first year, I'm very curious to know what drew you to McMaster and the DeGroote School of Business when you were deciding where to study.
Honestly, even when I was in grade 12, I was very unsure what I was gonna do, like the career path I was gonna choose, as well as the school. Obviously, if I didn't even know what I wanted to do, the school was like secondary for me, right? But I mean, I just knew that McMaster was one of the top unis in Canada, and obviously I wanted to go to the best. So I did my application and I applied to all the best unis and I got into all of them actually. But I think the decision to go to McMaster for me was an instinct thing. It was literally just my instinct saying, this is where you should go. It wasn't really a deeply thought out process. I'd not gone to any open houses for universities. So I really didn't know. But something in me said, go to McMaster. And I'm so glad that I did because, I have no regrets. I had a great time. My program was excellent. I loved my time there. I learned a lot. And so for me, what that tells me is that sometimes decisions are like, not really things that we need to think about deeply, like go with your heart. And that's what I did. I literally just went with what my heart told me to do. Also, a secondary reason for that time was that it was quite close to home. I lived in Mississauga at the time, and McMaster was in Hamilton. The other one that I wanted to go to was all the way in Montreal. And I thought, you know what? No, it's okay. I'll go here instead. And I'm so glad I did.
Thank you so much for sharing your story. And you've mentioned previously that your time at DeGroote and McMaster played a big role in helping provide the confidence and the direction to make important decisions as an entrepreneur. So, what
Mhm.
stands out to you most about your experience as a student?
So my experience at McMaster was that a lot of the courses I took, especially with the commerce program, because that's what I did, so I can speak to that, is they're very tailored to like the practicality of life, right? The theoretical aspects did exist, but a lot of the courses were case-based, right? And I truly believe that, the best way to learn anything is through your own experience. Like nothing will teach you as good as immersing yourself into like to experience something, right? And so, one of my favorite courses during my time at McMaster was my entrepreneurship course. It's a no-brainer that I'm an entrepreneur now, but everything we did in that class was case-based. We would look at businesses, we would analyze them, see what worked, see what didn't work, and we literally did things based on the reality of life. We weren't just looking at successful businesses, we were looking at failed businesses and why they failed. At some point we would have like actual entrepreneurs come into class to give us like real life experiences. And for me, that was very practical because it was something that everyone could relate to. You're literally seeing a human in front of you telling you how they're running their businesses, what is working, what is not working. I truly enjoyed that a lot of the courses in the commerce program were very like practical. Yeah.
You started your brand Timothy at just 19. What inspired you to take the leap so early?
Honestly, I've always been a curious person, right? For as long as I can remember, I've always loved business because now that I'm doing this, I start to connect the dots and I start to see, where I probably picked up like my entrepreneurial spirit. Starting the business at 19 wasn't something that I set out to do actually. It just happened. I like to say that it's a business that was born out of my curiosity to see how things would turn out. The initial sketch that became the handbag that started the brand was literally a birthday gift to a family friend. It was a sketch. And I was like, you know what? I would love to see this come to life. And, I took that curiosity and made it into a product. And then that became the business. And so for me, sometimes it's really just looking at it and understanding that businesses do start with small ideas. They do start with curiosity. Sometimes it's not you sitting down planning out a whole business idea, a business plan, and saying, I'm going to change the world, I'm going to innovate this or that. You might not even be trying to solve a problem in the beginning. It might just be, how would this look, right? And then you realize people actually like this stuff. And then it transitions into business. And really that's my story with Timabi. It started out like that.
Mentioning that it kind of started as just a small idea. As a student, did you ever dream that what started as a spark of an idea could have turned into such a big global brand?
To be honest, no, right? Because it wasn't meant to be a business. It was a hobby for, I would say, the first 3 years of the brand, even, right? It was just something I did on the side because I enjoyed doing it. But then by the time that I decided I was going to take it seriously, then I knew it was going to be bigger than, what I thought, what I saw it as in the beginning, right? Because I'd always loved handbags. And so I knew that if I was going to do anything that would have my name on it, it was going to be very excellently made. And I really wanted it to be something that represented not just me, but like just something that a lot of people would appreciate and love. And so for me, the craftsmanship was so, so, so important even early on. And I knew that if I put in the work, put in the craftsmanship, the storytelling, it was going to be a global brand. Why not? So I didn't know in the beginning. But as soon as I started and I made that decision that it was going to be a brand, then I knew that it was possible for it to go global. Yes.
Thank you so much for sharing your story, Fatima. You're so inspiring for us as young women in business. So I'm
Yeah.
also curious to know what were some of the biggest challenges you faced as a young woman entrepreneur?
For sure, for me, starting out was not being taken seriously, right? I was young. Really, when I started the brand and even when I decided it was going to be serious, I was still in university, right? Who was going to take a university student who's trying to get her commerce degree seriously, right? So not a lot of people took me seriously. But again, I didn't let that get to me because I focused heavily in the beginning on just the creative aspect of the business as opposed to the business side. I'm not saying everyone should do that, but for me, what mattered at the time was just pushing out my creativity. And so it didn't matter to me whether or not people took me seriously, right? But yeah, witnessed that. I'll try to get my brand into stores and they would look at the brand lookbook and everything would look good, but I wouldn't get into the store with my brand simply because they think that it's something that I was doing for fun, right? It wasn't a proper business in their minds. But I'm glad to say that I proved them wrong.
Wow, thank you so much for sharing, Fatima. As young business women ourselves, it's so inspiring to hear your journey and your story. So just going back to that advice piece, what advice would you
Mhm.
give current DeGroote or McMaster students who want to pursue entrepreneurship? And then for the second part of this question, what advice would you give to young women who are hesitant to pursue entrepreneurship? And this may be due to systemic barriers or their own self-doubt.
Okay, so the first part of your question, honestly, I would say just start. Start with what you have, what's available to you. Because see, entrepreneurship is about action and not perfection, really, right? So if you wait for everything to be perfect, because I know, everybody wants things to be done the right way. You want to raise the right amount of money to start that business. You want your packaging to look a certain way. But I'll tell you what, right? With my second business, we have changed packaging like three, four times. And that's because I didn't wait to, raise the money that we needed to make sure that we had the best packaging from the beginning. In fact, when you do start out with limited resources, it challenges you to actually be very creative with the way that you manage resources, with the way that you source for things, right? Not saying that if you have, the chance to be able to have access to big, resources that you don't take them because you want to be scrappy or that you want to be creative. I'm just saying if it's not disposable to you, start with what you have, where you're at, and just be creative as you go. And then the second part of your question is the thing about, just being hesitant to start just because you're a young lady, because, as we know, we live in a patriarchal society and a lot of things are against us. I would say, you need to think about just starting and not even just for yourself only. When you do things, you inspire a lot more younger people to start, right? I, you know, I I come from Northern Nigeria, and in Northern Nigeria, women do businesses, but like we're not really public about these things, right? We're a very conservative society. So sometimes beyond just doing the business for myself, I think about the women in my community and how it would make them feel. It would make them feel empowered to know that someone's doing it so I can too. So, think about the ripple effect. If you're not thinking for just yourself, think about what it will do to other people. And that will propel you into, not thinking too much about what barriers are out there. And honestly, by the time you start, you realize that it's actually not that hard to navigate a lot of the barriers. They're there, but there's always ways around them, right? It's not as difficult as you think. It's always just in our head. Um, Not saying there are no challenges, they're there, you're gonna encounter them, but you'll, find ways to get around them.
That's amazing. I think things that like really stuck out to me was, when you said like action, it's more so about action, not perfection. And, not just doing these things for yourself, but doing it for, these small changes are so impactful. They can be so impactful to so many people. And I guess that kind of leads into my next question. Could you share a pivotal moment in your business journey that shaped your leadership style or even your company's direction?
Yeah. So for me, what really stands out to me was in 2022 when I made the cover of Forbes magazine for the under 30 category. What it did was put a spotlight on me, right? But more importantly, it showed every single young girl around the world in my community that it was possible to do it. It was the very first time, a hijabi, a girl wearing the hijab was on the cover of Forbes magazine. And so, it just said, that, excellence really is not location specific, right? You could start something in a very little corner around the world and, be recognized for it. And, those are the stories that we want to share with the world so people are inspired, so younger girls know that it's possible. So for me, that moment made me decide that, I was going to be a leader, but a leader with impact. I wanted to do more than, just the numbers. I wanted to do more than just my business making a good amount of revenue or just, excelling in other parts. But like I wanted to make an impact in the world, especially in a community of younger women. I wanted to make an impact to ensure that younger women understood that it was possible. And so for me, yeah, I just wanted to be able to push the envelope forward for women who look like me, or even just younger women in general.
Yeah, that's incredible. Being on the cover of Forbes under 30, that's amazing. And again, that's also leads into my next question. As a woman in leadership, what unique challenges have you faced and how have you overcome them?
Okay, I'll give you an example. So, working in Nigeria, a predominantly, I mean, the whole entire world is patriarchal, right? But it's even more evident here, right? Like women are not taking as serious as they take the men. And so, if you're in a position of leadership and, you happen to work with maybe a lot of men, maybe, with suppliers and, just in the way of working with a lot of men, they don't take you seriously. They don't want to take orders from you. They think that you're emotional. And I'm just like, no. So, those are the challenges, but I've learned to be very firm in the way that I take our businesses. Yes, I'm a woman. Yes, I'm emotional. I have the ability to be all of those things, but I'm also a business leader who understands what it means to run a business and what it means to do business. And so, from a business standpoint, I do know what I'm talking about. You need to listen to me.
Wow, that's so inspiring. And I think I personally really resonate with your story because I lived in Jamaica for 16 years. So I also grew up in that sort of like male centered space. So thank you so much for sharing. You're really paving the way for so many young women. And so that leads into our final question. Do you have any mentors who have shaped your entrepreneurial journey? And how do you actively mentor or support others yourself?
That's a very good question. So for me, mentorship goes beyond like formal mentorship, right? I like to say that I have mentors who I've never met before. Emma Grede, for example, is a person that I look up to. She's a business leader. She's gone on to start many, many successful businesses that we all know. So I learned from her just by listening to her podcasts, by reading books, or watching her interviews. Victoria Beckham, another lady I've never met, but I'm intrigued by the way that she does business. Her I recently found out that, she was running a business, a non-profitable business for a very, very long time, but it looked profitable. And she spoke about it. So you learn things by just listening to other people and, doing research on them. But more formal mentors, yes, I do have, people that I also look up to. My mother, even though she's not like a business person, she started a business while, she was taking care of us. And, just that resilience, just that zeal to want to do something is something that inspired me to want to have my own, in a society that really teaches you to depend on a man, right? So my mom was somebody that, I was inspired by to start business, but also is somebody that I'm still inspired by just the way that she raised us. I look up to, women in the beauty space that I'm also a part of now. So, I am in the fashion business, but also in the beauty business as well. And, I recently started like a formal mentorship relationship with a lady called Mrs. Tara Fela Durotoye, who's like really, really big in business in Africa. And so, yeah, people like that. But more importantly, I also believe that whoever is giving so much should be expected of them, right? I have been privileged to receive mentorship, to receive kindness from a lot of like older women in business. And so I extend the same grace to younger people. And I do that through Tima B Global Resource, which is my platform where I sort of mentor not just girls, but my passion, my love is more to the girls because we are more marginalized. But, it's open to the boys and the girls, but more importantly, to younger people in communities like mine, in underserved communities. And for me, I truly believe that if the one thing I can inspire or, share with them is for them to change their mindset of what's possible, then I've done my job, right? Like I don't have to make sure that you start a business, but if I'm able to convince you that, you could actually be more than what you think you can, then I believe my job is done. Yeah.
That's fantastic. Wow, this was so inspiring to get to hear all your insights, your experience, and to just learn more about your journey as an entrepreneur, as a young woman, as a businesswoman. and just as a person, it was amazing. I want to thank you, Fatima, for making the time to talk to myself and Joanne today. It was truly incredible getting to learn more about your experiences, and it was so empowering. You are truly a trailblazer. You are really paving the way for lots of young women, including myself and Joanne. Yeah, but I want to thank you again for your time today and for coming and answering a few of our questions. It was really great meeting you.
Thank you so much for having me. The pleasure is all mine. I'm happy to share whenever.